IT enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of My Computer Careers Get Into IT Live, where we do just that, get into all things IT and all things related to our industry. Happy Friday. Happy Pi Day. Anybody that can go past 6 numbers, I'm very impressed. I certainly cannot. But we always appreciate you joining us on your Friday and joining us on at your lunchtime. We are here to talk about college. Is college worth it? And we could not have a better guest, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we have 2 topics that seem to to resonate the most with folks and with each of you. One is career advice and kind of everything that falls underneath of that. And the second is kind of exploring this conversation, this big conversation around skills versus a traditional degree. And I couldn't be happier to dig into that second topic with an absolute expert, someone incredibly passionate about this discussion, in Kathleen deLaski. And Kathleen, I'm going to give you a proper bio, but just want to say thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a great audience. I think one of the reasons I wrote the book was for this crowd, actually.
And Kathleen is in the middle of a book tour and promoting, and the book is going to drop in a couple
It already has, February 25th.
February 25th. And in the hard, the paper copy, it's available fully soon, of course, and you can pre-order. We'll talk about that. So Kathleen, obviously, thank you for joining us in the middle of everything that you're doing, fitting us into your hectic schedule. So let's tell you a little bit about Kathleen. Kathleen is an education and workforce designer as well as a futurist. She founded the Education Design Lab in 2013 to help colleges begin the journey to reimagine higher education toward the future of work. Her nonprofit has helped 1,200 colleges, organizations, and economic regions design shorter, more affordable pathways for learners to achieve their economic goals. Kathleen spent 20 years as a TV and then digital journalist, including time with ABC News, or as an ABC News White House correspondent, followed by a political appointment as the first female Pentagon spokesperson. Kathleen is also the author of Who Needs College Anymore, which is available now on e-readers and for pre-order where books are sold. So again, Kathleen, obviously your background is incredibly impressive. I'd like to spend time just there, but why don't we dig into the topic at hand a little bit? Folks, the chat is open. As always, we encourage you to jump in and ask questions. Kathleen will do her best to answer those. Patricia is out in the chat to monitor those things. So let's have a little bit of fun. All right. You wrote a book. You wrote a great book, and it's a topic that obviously resonated with me. What inspired you to write Who Needs College Anymore, Kathleen? And was there that pivotal moment that made you realize traditional education maybe needs some reimagining?
Well, I mean, I think for me, the early indicators were back in 2008, 2009, 2010, when my own kids were sort of going through that gauntlet of, being in high school and being told that, you've got to excel if you're going to get into a college, or at least a good college. And that it was that whole experience was super stressful for my family. Neither of my kids fit into the box that was, they were not people for whom it was easy to go through that gauntlet. And so, I mean, I started thinking like an outsider, about that time. I think that, this system isn't working. And it was at that same time that I was, coincidentally, I was an executive at Sallie Mae, the education finance company.
Sure.
And my day job was convincing people that, college is possible. And I ran the foundation, the corporate foundation, which was trying to, extend the student loan market really to, and helping lower income folks understand that they had access to Pell Grants and subsidized loans. And so, I was singing the praises of college. And I also, after that, I was involved in the charter school market, where, it was the age of college for all. And we were trying to fight this notion of zip code destiny, where, you were everybody who was born into a neighborhood where they weren't going to get to go to a good K-12 set of schools, was, destined not to go to a college or a good college. And, the charter school movement was founded to try to try to fight that. So I was in that movement for many years. So I was definitely on the college for all bandwagon. But between my own personal experience and then founding the lab in 2013, roughly, we were really focused on, how do you think about a college possibility for the 62% of Americans who don't have degrees. And, for many of them, it wasn't just a matter of, what I was learning along the way. It wasn't just a matter of them, getting into college. Like, it wasn't just about applying.
Right.
It was, there were a whole host of reasons why college wasn't working out for them. And what we saw, in that time period, let's say, a decade ago, we were sending a lot more people to college, but 40 to 50% of them, depending on, their socioeconomic status, usually were washing out for whatever reason. They were leaving. And so that's when I got really passionate. To answer your direct question, what was it that stirred you to write the book? I mean, I think it's the 10 years that I've worked, or the 12 years now in this organization. And we're working with colleges to try to help them create these shorter term pathways, and pathways that are more designed for the needs of what we're now labeling as a group of non-majority learners. New majority learners. And
Right.
New majority learners means anyone for whom college was not designed. So that's the trajectory, really.
And we're going to dig a bit more into this, but it's such a big number, 62% of Americans without a traditional degree. And I think the other important point to remember, folks, as we have this conversation, and Kathleen, I think you'll agree, I'm pretty sure that you will, there's still tremendous value in, obviously, traditional higher education. They just needs to be, needs to better meet learners where they are. And that's what Kathleen is.
Yeah, I always try to, get the caveat in. I am pro college, I'm pro degree. But I guess I have arrived at the point, near the twilight of my career, when I recognize that we need additional options.
So you have obviously extensive experience here, Kathleen, in education and innovation, paying attention to the space. Has your perspective on the pathways, learning pathways, has it evolved in any way in the last even 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say what I mean, and the book, I mean, one reason I wrote the book is to learn what is working, what can we learn from early adopters. And I think I was bullish on this idea of working with colleges, because to create in other words, the colleges themselves, they should disrupt themselves and not only offer degrees, but offer what we call micro pathways, short-term credentials. And you see enrollment in those areas increasing. So learners are kind of voting with their feet and asking for certificate programs. They're asking for apprenticeships, but we don't have, we haven't designed the system to, pay for those and to signal those to employers. So that's what's happening right now. So like, if you're a learner and you're saying, oh yeah, I want one of these faster tracks, I want one of these shorter term pathways, I would, proceed with caution today, because that design process it's in process right now. And we don't have a lot of data yet about what's working. We know that, IT workers, for example, are able to do, or have been, over the past decade, been able to do a boot camp or get an industry certification and get hired. But there are a lot of caveats, like which part of the IT industry, where do some of these pathways also require a degree? I mean, there's a lot of caveats. So you can't just say, oh yeah, abandon college, do this instead.
Right. And have a full understanding of that path as well. If you're going to gain certifications in, say, IT, understand what the salary is going to be, understand that you're going to enter maybe at an entry-level position and have to work your way in. Nothing obviously is guaranteed. And I think that's a great point. But so, for someone in their 30s or 40s that are looking to change careers, you said proceed with caution. So completely throwing caution to the wind with this question, I guess.
Right.
For that person, what learning paths would you recommend that might provide the fastest route to a rewarding career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I feel like if someone is in their 30s or 40s, I am not recommending that, and they want an IT career. I mean, if you decide then you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you got to get the piece of paper. There's just no
Right.
way around it. But if you in an IT career and you're in your 30s or 40s, I would definitely suggest looking researching the boot camps, because that is still a very viable way to get hired. But you want to, and I also recommend getting on like Reddit, because like, where do you get your career advising? I actually signed up for the career guidance in the Reddit subreddit, and it's fantastic for people helping each other out to say like what worked for me, and there's a lot of employers on there that kind of want to give back. That's a great place to learn about, if you have a specific idea of a course you want to take. If you're looking for exposure to uh, IT careers, and you've heard about AI, you've heard about cyber, and you want to explore it, I highly recommend taking one of the Google certificates, which you can do on Coursera.
Yep.
Like for $49 a month, you can get on there and take I think it's pretty much an all you can eat um, uh, uh, platform, right? Where you
Right.
could, so you just get on there. I did that. I got on there for a couple months. It's a lot of work to do the Coursera. Like either the hottest ones right now are cyber, data analytics, and project management. Those were the hottest ones as of me finishing my book. But that's a great way to explore um, a different career or the hot new thing. And then from there, you could decide to do an immersive if you have the funding to do that. Or if you don't have the fund, if you don't have a lot of funding, what my organization's we've been working with community colleges around the country. And if you Google micro pathways, our site will come up, and you can be taken, and you can see what the IT pathways are at community colleges, and you can see some of the colleges named that are offering them. But those are super affordable, and often are teamed up with employers in the region. So that's we're working with 100 community colleges now. Those are expanding around the country. So I would say in another few years, those are going to be a viable option in many locations.
And folks, just a reminder, the Education Design Lab, we've shared the link. Go check it out. It's a great resource. I love the point about Reddit. You can get lost on Reddit.
Yeah.
You can. Yeah.
Career guidance is a good subreddit.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is an important one. We ask this a lot for some of our skills warriors out there. In a lot of the materials that I share, I talk about the 70 million folks that are our skills warriors that don't have traditional degrees.
Right.
How can someone without the traditional 4-year degree effectively communicate their capabilities to potential employers, Kathleen?
Yeah, well, the two things that seem to matter for the employers that I've talked to, one are, this is not going to be a surprise, industry certifications, and they are not available. I mean, they're most available in IT and healthcare. So if we're focused on an IT crowd here, it's the usual ones that you all know about in data security. I flagged in my book a couple of the ones in tech that are most, and these are very usable signals to employers. If you have these, they're kind of prerequisites. It's not to say that somebody who also has a degree is not going to beat you out.
Yeah.
But if you have some experience that's related that you can, talk about in the skills section of your resume, and you have some of these certifications like the CISSP, certified information systems security professional, the cloud security professional, certified data professional, Cisco, the AWS solutions architect, or the Microsoft Azure. Those are some of the most popular ones that have a signal to employers. And what I found is, even the young kids, who are in high school, who are getting those through their CTE programs in their high school, we're able to get in on an entry level job. And I think if you're coming in at mid-career and you have other kinds of experience, particularly if you can demonstrate project management experience, and, collaboration, some of the, what used to be called soft skills, which are now called durable skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are, I tell everyone, try to be a double threat, meaning that you're, demonstrate that your management potential, but also have some of those starter technical skills that are, fast changing, and you can get through, a lot of either DIYs. You can prep for them through DIY sources, or you can take one of these sort of low cost online programs.
One of the reasons I love doing this broadcast is I get to learn as well, and talking to smart folks like you, Kathleen. Last week is where I learned about durable. Soft skills have been rebranded.
Yeah. Well, we had to, because soft. I mean, the reason no one liked the word soft was because there's nothing soft about them. They actually are. If you look at the World Economic Forum's top 10 skills that globally that employers care about, those are them.
Yeah. Some good points made in the last answer, folks. Just I want to reiterate, we've heard that experience point so many times. Find a tie-in, find some experience related to the industry you're trying to get in and you're working through. Put that in your resume. It's really important. And then also for my computer career people, some of those searches sound very familiar that Kathleen mentioned. So I had to smile to hear those. So thank you for that. Speaking of employers, though, Kathleen, what advice would you give to those organizations that still heavily rely on the 4-year degree requirement when hiring?
Yeah, well, they, with the job market, like a few years ago when tech was generally super hot, now I would say it's hot in pockets, but when it was hot across the board, I think employers were looking for, like, how can I find people? I mean, they were like, I profile a guy, a teenager who was, stalked because he had the right certifications in an area where we live, which is, hungry for AWS is here.
Right.
I'm in the DC area, big data center needs. And so, basically it's a seller's market, if the seller is the applicant.
Right.
But now I would say it's still a seller's market if you're in cyber areas. I think there are 500,000 unfilled jobs in cyber. They're not necessarily entry level though. So, figuring out how to get on that first rung is critical. But I think that, I guess what we would recommend to employers is if they would say, oh, I love this idea because I want to be ready to fish upstream and increase my pipeline, I would say to employers, probably the best start for a resource is the SHRM. The SHRM Foundation. That's the Society for Human Resource Managers, has it's called a Center of Excellence for Skills-Based Hiring. And you can find it on their website, and they have all kinds of resources. How do you try to convert your job descriptions that you post, your job postings? How do you convert those to skills rather than, a BA required or BA preferred, or BS, how do you convert that to skills? Because many employers are saying they want to do it. Not that many have actually done it, but I think it's, it will be driven by shortages, worker shortages. That's where you see it happening, is in the pockets of tech or healthcare, or old non-sexy industries where they're really worried about, getting the new talent.
As with many initiatives, especially to start with the federal government, this as well as anyone, that is moving a little slow, but the fact that the conversation's happening and getting a little bit of momentum, I think is encouraging. Gaining a little momentum is encouraging. And, also around that point, I've heard a lot here, and you may or may not agree, that a big part of talking to an employer and kind of convincing them or changing the mindset is maybe changing the culture or working to change the culture within the organization, the employer, the place that's doing the hiring. Work with managers to help them understand that maybe a 4-year degree isn't necessary, if that's the case, if that's the way you're moving, and work to adjust the culture as well.
Yeah, I describe in the book where states actually and the federal government have been leaders in this, which people were surprised to hear that it was actually President Trump that in his first administration who signed the first executive order to require federal agencies to remove the degree requirement from from federal jobs. And contractors were starting to do that as well, federal contractors. Then states kind of picked up the momentum because it's a nice political, it's an easy layup to say, oh yeah, we're going to support, the working man and woman. Right. And so states kind of very quickly, we're up to like 26 states now that have done the same thing at the state level jobs. And so, yeah, maybe that's not a ton of jobs, but it is, it kind of shows the way and provides, some research on did it work. And like Maryland was the first state, and they've had some pretty good results in terms of hiring, but it is going slowly overall. I don't want to suggest to people who don't have a degree that you're not going to be up against, you will be up against folks who have degrees, obviously, and maybe weighted. But what I think is changing, particularly in tech, because it's much more, you can demonstrate your skills much easier than you can, in like consulting or, an area where the degree is kind of this unstated, elevated proxy. In tech, you can demonstrate skills. And when I interviewed several employers who described how they're hiring people like software engineers, and they're doing, your listeners probably know about this. They're doing the you stand up and write the code on the whiteboard while the hiring team is watching you, and you're doing it live. I mean, that's, for those of us who aren't in technical fields, that sounds really scary that you're having to it's like an audition if you're, auditioning to be in a show, right?
Right. But I think that's a great point for folks to remember in this conversation. You have to keep learning. Don't stop learning. Don't rely on just a certification, a number of certifications. Continue on. Go to community college, whatever you need to do. Because to Kathleen's point, you may be up against that person with a 4-year degree that for some reason may be more attractive. So keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. And there's Bruce. Bruce is our CMO. He's doing what he is supposed to do and talking about My Computer Careers Upskill Academy. Yes, folks. We also have our own skills-based, obviously, or our skills training platform for working professionals. So go check that out. It's on the website. Thank you, Bruce. I was going to get to it, by the way, but I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about AI. It's obviously not going anywhere, Kathleen, dominating the conversations. We talk about it every day on the marketing team here. So, and I'm sure that your team does the same. How do you see AI and online learning changing education in the next, whatever, X amount of years?
I think, there's good and bad, right? One, the good news is that job applicants and learners, will have expertise in their pocket, right? Not just information, but expertise. Let's assume that, that this audience can figure out how to, the right prompts to get what they need, to very quickly at least be, whether you feel legitimate or you might have imposter syndrome about your expertise, but how to get answers to things, right? And I think that helps both in terms of your ability to describe what you can do, or how you can access information, but it also will help you in the job application process and the career navigation process. Those are all the positives, right? But if you go over to the employer side and what's happening, what is AI doing to the job market, the jobs available?
Right.
There's a lot of new studies coming out, that suggest that the entry level white collar jobs, and this includes most tech jobs, are going to be pinched or contract because we the sort of you don't need people to be the researchers or the base level coders or to do the bottom line, the lower level kind of thinking work. Or you need fewer of those people because you just hire a few and they're the prompters, if you will.
My comparison in public relations to be that person who turns and burns press releases. That person's going to be obsolete at some point because of AI. But yeah.
Right. And so I think that's very real. We already see it happening. And so the concern is, okay, and this is what colleges are facing, that I've been talking about it at the conference, or people are buzzing about this at the conferences I've been going to over the past few weeks, that, okay, we as colleges, we have to turn out a more nimble graduate. And I think somebody in mid-career needs to think about this too. How do you scale or accelerate to be able to be a next level thinker, worker, and that's hard when you're on the outside. So for colleges, we're looking at this stepladder approach where people could come in and out of these shorter term pathways, these micro pathways I described, is in some ways a solution or an antidote to this idea that you go to a 4-year college, you're done, you're baked, and then somebody's supposed to, the employer is supposed to buy your services. But it's just, I think AI is the main reason that that's not going to work anymore.
So I guess piggybacking on that a little bit, many parents, people of all ages, I shouldn't say parents, people of all ages still believe a traditional 4-year degree is the only path to success. Right. How would you have a productive conversation and talk about alternative routes, or is that necessary?
Well, I mean, I would never discourage a parent of an 18-year-old or the 18-year-old themselves from going off, being driven off to the Ivy League or any college, in the family SUV, right, and dropped off for 4 to 6 years to have the, that formative experience. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, most people I know want that for their kids. And so if the family can afford that, and if the kid is not one of these, a growing number of students who's like, oh, I can't really imagine myself sitting in a desk for 4 more years, that there's a group of people who are in that category and they need other pathways. And we can talk about who that is. But hey, if the young person wants it and the parents can afford it, or you pick a low cost version and you're going to self-fund it yourself. There's lots of ways to do college, low cost.
Right.
I totally recommend it. I think the question is, more and more people are going to college to get a good job. And that's the piece of it that I think is going to be harder for colleges to deliver, or they need to adapt. And I think, and I talk in the book about how they are adapting. They need to adapt because the college experience part of college is wonderful and could withstand, but I believe there are going to be fewer people in the future willing to pay for it, because they want results. They want just-in-time learning to get to the skill, to get to the job. And the part of college that's wonderful that I'd love to preserve, and maybe we can figure out ways to have unbundled shorter versions of the college experience part, where you're learning how to learn and you're learning how to get along with people, and you're experiencing the course in world civilizations that just makes you think. I want to preserve all those things. Believe me, I'm just trying to be practical about how do we serve the people who aren't able or willing to do that anymore.
I love the conversation, Kathleen. I think it's so important. So if you look at the other side of the coin, then are there internal or external barriers that prevent more people from exploring kind of the non-traditional educational route?
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle right now is that we're not funding those pathways for folks. Yeah. So, the billions of dollars that are available for Pell Grants and student aid and work study, all these wonderful programs, they're all tied to being in college. And so even if you're going to a college for a short-term pathway, you don't, you're going to a boot camp from a private or a nonprofit source, yeah, you're not eligible for any of that funding. That is changing with community colleges. So I think the Congress is looking at passing a bill called short-term Pell, which will, if it passes, will add some money to the non-traditional routes. But that's the big barrier.
I think fair enough. And is it? And I think that's it. Obviously, that's the answer. Is there a mindset that's holding people back? You know, let's just say taking a career path that may lead to a skilled trade.
Yeah.
Is there still a stigma attached to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's changing. There have been a lot of articles recently about how that's changing, and that some Gen Z is now thinking like, I want to be an electrician because it's stable, I can make a lot of money, and I can be my own boss. I don't have to deal with corporate America. There's
Gen Z, right?
Yeah, I think, and I describe in the book, in the chapter that's called "Is College for All Dead?", which looks at high schools and what's happening in high schools. I do describe that there is kind of a scrambling between, the tech, the VOTech, or the CTO, what's now called career and technical education, that crowd, and the college prep crowd. It's kind of a scrambling, and it's because technology is really blurring the lines between these two types of jobs, because, a lot of tech jobs, or sorry, a lot of, what used to be called, like, a lot of factory jobs now require highly technical training, and a lot of jobs in trades actually require these durable skills that we're talking about. And so, high schools are really looking at, wait, maybe we should be blending this kind of learning together. And like I profile like New York City, that's starting to do that in their public schools.
That's a really interesting point. I can't wait to dig into the book, Kathleen. I'm really looking forward to it. I am. So let's put you on the hot seat a little bit. By the way, Rick, we see you out there. Thanks for joining, as always, buddy. Let's talk about your path, Kathleen. In your own career journey, what non-traditional skill or experience has been most valuable, if you don't mind?
What non-traditional skill? Well, I would say in the book, I talk about my own, and when I was in high school, I wanted to be in musical theater. And I joined, I got a job my senior year of high school that was a full-time job as in a show that ran for like 6 months called Can. And I was a can dancer in this show. And I would leave high school at, noon, and get home from my job at like 1 a.m. And my parents let me do this. I couldn't believe it. And so, but as I say in the book, the kinds of skills that we build outside of school, we haven't realized. I think it's now starting to come into focus that those skills, in my case, it was, multitasking, customer service, because we had to wait tables, also, collaboration. I mean, I was building these skills, and sleep deprivation, that's a skill, right? And so, I feel like those really set me up for, being extremely agile in life. And, we all need those kind of like boot camp, or, basic training that you get in the military experiences.
Folks, that's another, I guess, another great point, another great reason to really, I guess, not put yourself down. If you're not confident about yourself, think about all your life experience and think about what's got you here, and kind of lean into that. Think about where your strengths lie, because it's outside of just that certification or that degree or whatever it may be. You have a lot of skills.
Yeah, I should just mention that the lab, if you look at the lab's website, and if you look at this term called X credit, it stands for experience credit. But we're trying to figure out ways to get employers to validate and see the value of your experience in life.
Yeah, fantastic. So here we are, and this, I think this is a layup, because I've seen some of what you've said here. But if you could redesign the entire higher ed system today, what are your top 3 adjustments?
Top 3. Okay. Well, the number one that I like to is kind of a mental model of the idea of a step ladder. This idea that, the reason that 62% of Americans don't have a 4-year degree is really because of both the modality, like the way it's set up. I mean, it's either they have time barriers or financial barriers. or they're single moms, or they're veterans with families. How do you think about higher education as coming in and out of college and weaving it more together with workforce experience? And so that would be my number one design criteria. I think number two is really to look at some of the European models, which maybe aren't holding up everywhere in Europe, but this idea that higher education is an entitlement, is a right, not something that you have to bear the cost of. I mean, maybe some of it to have skin in the game, but when I went to college in the 70s, we were still at a point where the states funded 2/3 of college, particularly for if you went to a public school, public university or college. Now we're down to 1/3. So, and that cost has been shifted to the consumer, and that's one of the reasons why fewer people are choosing to go to college. And so, if we could solve affordability or even mitigate it, I think that would be my second one. And my third one is with a point I made earlier, which is how do we figure out how to unbundle the college experience and offer it to people who can't afford, the cost of those fabulous 4-year colleges that we might try to break the bank to send our kids to. Many people don't even have that bank roll to break. And how could we unbundle the college experience and offer it to them, in a shorter format, and potentially not one where they have to go away to school, because a lot of people just can't do that.
Right. Makes very, very good sense. Obviously, and I've read some comments from you where everybody kind of talks about how obviously the costs of college, traditional college, are are higher than they've been, but there's a reason for that too. Universities have to support all of those programs.
Absolutely.
Their costs are going up, so there is a reality to that.
Yes, I totally understand why the price of college has gone up. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So why don't we leave with this? Kathleen, this has been a great discussion. Where can people find more about Education Design Lab? Where can they find the book? Anything in particular you want to share there?
Yeah, well, I should say that the book is out. I mean, it's not pre-order anymore. It's available. You can get it in one day on Amazon. I got a copy for somebody yesterday. So it's out, and the audio version is coming out in April.
Okay.
So that's and I have a website called whoneedscollegeanymore.org, and that website has like discussion guides. The discussion guides are in the back of the book too. But like if your families or your employers or you're a college or whatever I've kind of got them organized by stakeholders. So that could be fun. And then the Education Design Lab's website is eddesignlab.org.
And folks, we've shared all of those websites. The Who Needs College Anymore. I spent some time in those discussion docs. It was fantastic. I pulled some of the thoughts for these questions from there. Spend some time. It is worthwhile to spend time on those sites, folks. Kathleen, I hope you understand how much I appreciate the time, and I think how important this conversation is, and just your perspective and insight is so important, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, and thanks for what you do with my computer center.
All right, folks, that is going to end our time. I want to make sure to get Kathleen out of here. She is busy. So I will get everyone back to their days. As always, we will see you here next week. We're going to talk to a grad and kind of feature what they've been up to. But until then, have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next week. And Kathleen, if you don't mind hanging around for just a second.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.